Level 1. The two graduates. Imagine two graduates. Same university, same degree, nearly identical grades. They walk into their first jobs 3 weeks apart, at almost the exact same salary. For the next several years, if you looked at their paychecks side by side, you'd struggle to tell them apart. Now imagine 20 years pass. One of them is still earning a paycheck. A good one, a comfortable one, nothing to be ashamed of. The other, say, for the sake of this story, is worth $18 million. Companies, board seats, capital that keeps compounding on its own, whether he's paying attention to it or not. Same intelligence, same work ethic, roughly. Same starting line. So what happened in between? It wasn't a better idea. It wasn't a lucky stock pick. It wasn't even really about being smarter. Whatever separated them was never visible on either of their bank statements. Not the real ones, anyway. By the end of this film, you'll be able to name exactly what it was. But not yet. First, you need to watch it happen to somebody, from the very beginning, before it has a name at all. Level 2. The desk. 26 years old. 3 years out of college. A cramped desk in a city council office. In a building with fluorescent lights that hum just loud enough to notice. Call him Daniel. He isn't based on anyone specific. He's every young staffer who's ever sat at that desk, in every city, in every decade. The pay is modest enough that his parents quietly worry about him. If you only looked at his paycheck, you'd assume this job means nothing for the next 30 years of his life. You'd be looking at the wrong number. Something else is happening at that desk. And it has nothing to do with policy yet, and nothing to do with money. A local developer starts remembering Daniel's name after only one meeting. A regional lobbyist starts copying him on emails he doesn't technically need to see. And then, on a Tuesday that feels like every other Tuesday, an envelope shows up on his desk. Cream-colored, heavier than it needs to be. A dinner invitation, from someone 2 or 3 rungs above anyone who's ever spoken to him directly, with no stated agenda at all. Level 3, the dinner. He almost doesn't go. He tells himself it's probably a mistake, that the invitation was meant for his boss, and got routed to him by accident. He puts on the one jacket he owns that still fits properly and goes anyway. The restaurant is the kind of quiet where the silence itself feels expensive. 6 people are already seated when he arrives, mid-conversation, and nobody stops talking to greet him. He finds his name card, at the far end, past the wine list nobody's asked him to look at, and sits down into a conversation that started before he walked in and doesn't slow down to let him catch up. For the first 20 minutes, nobody addresses him directly. He isn't being excluded exactly. He's being observed. 2 seats down, the man who apparently arranged this whole evening never once turns to face Daniel. But between sentences, when he thinks no one's watching, his eyes flick down the table, measuring something. Daniel notices something else, too. At the opposite end from the host, there's a younger man in an ill-fitting suit, clearly junior, clearly not the reason anyone came tonight, and nobody at the table has said a word to him all evening either. Daniel has a choice here, though he doesn't think of it as one at the time. He could spend the rest of the night trying to get the host's attention, the way everyone at that table who matters seems to be doing. Instead, he turns and starts talking to the junior man. Nobody else is bothering to look at. Not networking. Just an actual conversation. About nothing important mostly. The kind you have with someone when you're not performing for anyone. Nobody at the table notices. That's the point. Near the end of the meal, the host finally asks Daniel one direct question. Not about policy, not about his job, but about his family, where he grew up, what his father does for work. It's a small question. It isn't small at all. It's the sound of someone deciding whether to place a bet. Nobody offers Daniel anything that night. No job, no favor, not even a business card. He walks out into the cold, not entirely sure why he was there at all, or why he spent most of it talking to the one person in the room who clearly didn't matter. He was there because somebody had already decided he was worth remembering, before he'd done a single thing to earn it, And the man in the ill-fitting suit, the one Daniel actually paid attention to, is worth remembering too. Just not yet. Level 4. The machine gets bigger. Follow Daniel forward, and you can watch that same quiet machine simply get larger. A seat opens up on a state legislative staff. Now, the rules being written aren't about one permit. They're about entire industries. Insurance, energy, licensing that decides who gets to compete in a market at all. The invitations change with the stakes. Conference panels, consulting work for a family friend, a slow, steady current of relationships, all pointing toward the same eventual moment. When Daniel eventually leaves this job, someone is going to want to hire exactly what he built while he was inside it: a seat in Congress. The network stops being regional and becomes national and professionalized. Watchdog groups have tracked this pattern for decades. A meaningful share of former members of Congress and senior staff move into lobbying or government relations roles after leaving office. The relationships built while writing the rules become the products sold, later, to people who need someone to explain the rules, or bend them. By the time Daniel is a senior advisor near the top of this world, the job itself starts to matter less than what it grants him access to. Foreign officials, central bankers, corporate boards that operate on every continent. Board seats appear. Speaking fees that would have seemed absurd a decade earlier become ordinary. And somewhere in the middle of all this, 15 years after that dinner, Daniel gets a call. The man in the ill-fitting suit is now the chief executive of one of the largest firms in that same city. He's calling Daniel first. Not because Daniel ever asked him to remember that night, but because he never forgot it. Daniel never engineered that outcome. He just chose, on one ordinary evening a decade and a half earlier, to actually see someone nobody else was bothering to look at. None of this is unique to Daniel or to politics. On a trading floor in Manhattan, a junior analyst gets pulled onto a call not because of his title, but because a managing director remembers he was at the right dinner last month. In Los Angeles, a young talent agent's entire early career gets built on one relationship: a single actor who trusted him before anyone else would. In Silicon Valley, a scout at a venture fund makes his name not by finding the best product, but by texting one founder, 18 months before anyone else believed in the company. Different rooms, different industries, the exact same machine. Level 5, the invisible bank account. Here's the thing. Nobody told Daniel, or the analyst, or the agent, or the scout the thing that would have made everything up to this point make sense a lot sooner. They were all making deposits into an account that doesn't show up on any bank statement. Think of it as an invisible bank account, running quietly alongside the one you can actually check online. Every real conversation is a deposit. Every favor you do, with nothing asked in return, earns interest. Every introduction you make for someone else compounds, the same way money does, sitting untouched for years, gathering value you can't see happening in real time. By the time Daniel got that phone call in Chapter 4, his balance had been growing, quietly, for over a decade. Off a single dinner he probably didn't think about again for years. But an account like this doesn't only pay out. Every deposit is also a small debt on the other side of the ledger. Every favor accepted quietly obligates you to something, later, that you don't get to choose the terms of. Ask anyone who spent 30 years inside rooms like the one Daniel sat in, and most of them will tell you the same thing. Eventually, someone calls in what you owe, and it isn't always convenient, and it isn't always something you'd have agreed to if you'd seen it coming the night you accepted the favor. That's the account balance almost nobody thinks to track. The deposits, or the debts. We're taught to watch our salary. Nobody teaches us to watch this. And this is the actual answer to the two graduates from the opening of this film. Both of them made deposits into their real bank accounts every 2 weeks, like clockwork, for 20 years. Only one of them was also making deposits and carrying debts in the invisible one. Level 6, the price of a phone call. So if that account is real, what's actually sitting inside it? What is access worth? In dollars, if you're willing to do the math. Try this thought experiment. Imagine someone whose word alone gets doors open personally introduces you to one sitting decision maker, a CEO, a fund manager, someone who controls real budget, once a month, for a year. Not a cold email on your behalf. An actual warm, you should talk to this person introduction, from someone that decision maker already trusts completely. A warm introduction like that doesn't just get your call answered, it gets your call answered differently. The kind of meeting where the other person walks in already assuming you're worth their time, instead of needing to be convinced. Even one of those 12 conversations turning into a single meaningful deal, an investment, a partnership, a board seat, a piece of information that lets you act a few weeks earlier than everyone else. Even one of those, at that level, can be worth more than most people will earn across their entire working life. 12 chances at that, in a single year, from one relationship. That's not gratitude, and it's not networking conference language. It's a number. It just happens to be a number that never appears on a resume, a job posting, or a salary chart, because our whole system for measuring success was built to track everything except this.